Hi, everyone. Happy homecoming. I'm Dr. Jerry Schnepp, Professor of Visual Communication Technology, and I'm happy today to share with you some of the research that I work on in what's called learner experience design. The idea behind learner experience design is that I am a computer scientist and I am passionate about teaching. So to find a way to combine pedagogy with technology, I found that I learned a lot of insight from people by just conducting interviews with them and learning about the way that they learn. In 2016, I was involved in a task force to develop a collaboration space called the Collab Lab. I was then appointed the director of the Collab Lab. And this is a place on campus where students, faculty, and staff can come together to work on projects. And the methodology that we embrace in the Collab Lab, which is called design thinking, is something that I embraced and really use as my sort of guiding light as I conduct interviews with people that inform the ideas that I develop. So I want to share with you a couple of these things. The first one involves a training tool for people who want to learn sign language. This is a prototype of an application that I worked on with an undergraduate student who did an independent study with me. I have been working on the technology to do sign language synthesis for several years, but it's been a translation system that would take a speech input and then would generate animations of sign language. Rebecca, my student, had an idea about gamification. And what the two of us learned through interviews with students is that if they can learn by engaging in gameplay, which includes things like rewards and competition, that they'll be much more interested in learning. And so we integrated the sign language technology that I'd been working on with a game type interface, which was a learning system where students of sign language can practice by viewing animations of sign language, and they can adjust things like how fast or slow the animation plays. They can choose topics like food or sports. And then they can view those animations, and when they're ready, they can take quizzes where the animation is signed, and then they guess at what the animation is. And they can engage with other students in a competitive format where they sort of play against their friends. And we found this to be a really interesting idea and one that we're sort of still working on and improving. I also interviewed students about their how they create art, and I realized that students sometimes talk about using multimodal interfaces, but no one really understands what it is. So I worked on a prototype for an app called Sing and Sketch. I thought, what does it mean for something to be multimodal? Sing and Sketch lets people sing and draw at the same time. It's an iPad application. When the user sings, the pitch of their voice determines the color of the paint, and the amplitude or volume of their voice determines the width of the stroke. And this allows people to create really interesting compositions. And it's also it's not very easy to use, because you sort of have to have a lot of focus to be able to sing and sketch at the same time. But I find that students who use this app come up with some really interesting ideas. So to speak a little more about learner experience design, I developed some insight during the semester one year when, while giving an exam, students were asking me for hints to the correct answer. The interesting thing is that while I was proctoring an exam, I'd see students raising their hands and saying, "Can you look at this? Am I on the right track? Is this the correct answer?" And of course, it's not fair for me to help one student and not the others. And so I started thinking about equity and what it would be if I could provide hints to students, but if there was an equitable trade-off. So I thought, what if we let students trade points for hints? Meaning that what if they could trade some of the points that they would be awarded for a particular test question, and in exchange they would get a hint back. So I developed a system called point barter. The interface is pretty simple. It looks like a normal online testing system, but you see that the question is here, the answer box is here, and off to the right there's the barter feature. And if they click on the barter button, a hint is given, but the total points are reduced. Now, when I tested this using point barter with students, I found two really interesting insights. One is that I used it with two sections of the same class, and one section I used point barter with them, and the other section I used our normal testing system, which is called Canvas. And when I examined the grade distribution, it hadn't changed between the two. They really were, the grade distribution was virtually the same. However, at the end of the semester, when I gave both groups a cumulative final exam, which was exactly the same, and it didn't use the point barter interface, the group that used point barter actually scored significantly higher than the group that hadn't used it. So this leads to the observation that students can learn during their assessment. The students who used point barter throughout the semester actually learned the material more, or learned it more deeply, than those who didn't, and consequently scored higher at the end of the semester. One more example I'd like to share was motivated by the question, how might we help to guide student reflection? We often ask students to participate in experiential learning, and we usually ask them to write something like a reflection paper after they've done the activity. The problem with these reflection papers is that we often ask them to complete the assignment a week or more after the experience. And people's memories change over time. They don't remember the nuances exactly as they occurred if a week of time has passed since the experience. So I worked on a project called EASEL, which is an acronym for Education Through Application Supported Experiential Learning. And this is a mobile app that basically allows teachers to push a prompt to students. They would get a notification on their phone to ask them to enter a mini reflection. And this happens multiple times throughout the experiential learning activity. An example would be if a student is going to, let's say, let's say they're going to do an interview with someone. So they would get a push notification that reminds them that they're about to do this activity. And before the activity, they would watch a video. We could ask them questions before they engage in the activity. And then when they start it, a time tracker would be activated so that they know how long they spent doing the activity. After they're finished, a reflection prompt would pop up and they could enter in their reflection about it. And this is integrated into the course so that it has a progress monitor where they can see all the work that they've done, and ultimately this could be incorporated into multiple courses at the same time. All of these ideas were the result of doing interviews with students and learning insights into how they learn. These are all sort of prototypes in various stages of development. Some of them I've been able to test and evaluate, some I'm still working on. But I thought I'd share with you a bit about learner experience design and how I integrate it into my research. Thanks for watching.